Hi, I'm sorry that I'm standing in between you and lunch, but I brought sharks. So, hi, I run an organization called Upwell. We're the other up. Thanks, Miss Worthy. And this project was started about a year and a half ago with a crazy idea. A nonprofit job description got circulated, got sent to me by someone in this room. And it was really long, and buried in the middle of one of the long paragraphs, it was like, these are your stakeholders, and these are your stakeholders, but really at the end of the day, the ocean is your client. And I was like, that's the biggest idea I've ever heard. I want to work for the ocean. I want to have client meetings with the ocean. I love the ocean. And this is the kind of big idea that I think we need because one, it makes my job really fun. And two, I think our frames for campaigning on issues suck. They're like pathetic, and I am, and probably will never be one of the best minds of my generation because I would rather do anything else than get people to click ads. Like, that's not what I work for. It's boring to me. What is interesting to me is things like this. Pretending that all the internet talked about last week, this is a representation of 251,748 social mentions, capturing our keyword sets on prancer size, grumpy cat, and sharks in general. To be fair, we monitor the sharks conversation much more closely over a year than we monitor prancer size or grumpy cat, so the data may be a little weak there. So on Thursday last week, there was a really big spike in the grumpy cat conversation because he announced a new movie, or his handlers announced a new movie. And on Friday, prancer size spiked way up and overtook the normally quite large shark conversation. And we think this is the kind of data, although slightly pretend, it is based on real numbers, that will help to make online campaigners make better decisions about what they campaign on. So this is the kind of research we do. It's also the kind of research that Nestle does. This is Nestle's social media war room. I've heard rumors that it was founded with these big screens running Radiant 6 and people in wheeled chairs in response to a Greenpeace campaign on Facebook about palm oil. That may be just a rumor. But this team monitors the conversation about water bottles, and they intervene intentionally when people are smack-talking water bottles, because that's a really important part of their business. So I was like, I want this, but for stuff I love. So we made one. And we also make really boring graphs as an important part of our work. There's nothing funny in this one, really. We have at the top here the daily social mentions starting in January of 2012, going up to about July. The big ocean conversation gets about 120,000 social mentions a day. Dolphins and whales and sharks are around 30,000 social mentions a day. And then way down here at the bottom, move out of the way so you can see because it's really tiny, the conversations that we pay attention to in marine conservation. Marine protected areas, super important issue. The parks of the sea is like 50 social mentions a day. Important strategy, tiny, tiny conversation. So I heard the Discovery Channel and some industry publication, they were like, we got 750,000 social mentions of Shark Week last year. And I was like, you lying liars. I monitor the conversation. There's like 30,000 social mentions a day. There's no way you got that in a week. But we had Radiant 6, and I could buy historic data. So I was like, I'm going to prove you liars, you lying liars of the Discovery Channel. And I was totally wrong. Completely wrong, and actually year-over-year growth is it's kind of significant between 2010 and 2011. And I found that industry article because we were trying so hard to figure out when Shark Week 2012 was. They hadn't pinned down the date because the Olympics, and so we're trying to find all the rumors because we knew it was going to be important. Couldn't find the date. But we found that bragging thing, which was really handy. It was a good heads up that something big was happening. So we scheduled a Sharkenar, and we did a lot of research about that. We did some hashtag analysis and determined that though there are a number of other hashtags used, basically everyone uses Shark Week as the hashtag, useful for campaigners. And that though the conservation sector thinks that Shark Week is like really sensationalized and bad for saving sharks, actually it's really a fan conversation for the most part, with a tiny slice of saving. There's a small conservation slice of that. It's the biggest spike in the shark conversation all year. We shared that in the Sharkenar. And we pinned down the influencers, and we're like, hey, people in our Sharkenar who are shark influencers, here's the other shark influencers, let's make the conversation bigger. And the Shark Week 2012 conversation grew a little bit year over year, 109%. Good job, Discovery Channel. But the conservation slice of it, which we helped to grow through the Upwell network, grew 230%. So the growth in that one place we were trying to grow outstripped the rather dramatic overall growth, which we thought was exciting. There was a lot more shark. It actually, it spiked up to 180,000 mentions, but if we made the chart like that, it squashed down everything so small you couldn't really read it. So, but there was a lot more shark last year during Shark Week. So we're doing another Sharkenar this year, and this is a room full of influencers. So if you would like to get involved in Shark Week and see how much bigger we can make it this year, just tweet this hashtag, and I'll at you back with an invitation to the Sharkenar. You can come play in our sharky waters. What we're trying to do is figure out how to help people understand if they should go surf a conversation today on the issue. We have made a baseline in conversation so we can understand what the lowest part of the conversation is, kind of a baseline for every day. We track the day-to-day conversation so we know when there's a spike and we know when there's a really big spike. And the idea here is that your campaign budget is not a number in a spreadsheet. Your campaign budget is the internet. And you need to figure out how to use that as your campaign budget. Abundance as a frame is a big deal to me. So we have this complicated campaign cycle. We start with the big listening. We identify opportunities. Then we package things very carefully, and we pay a lot of attention to how Upworthy is doing that, because they're really good at it. So we just steal some of that stuff. And we run this stuff out through a distributed network. So we don't have a big platform with millions of visitors. We have a network that has millions of followers. It's more of a campaign content syndication kind of a thing. And we think that what we're trying to do is get people to our network to share it, one hop out, and them to share it too. And that's when we really start to see the spikes. And then we measure that. And if you want to learn more about how we do our campaigning, we have a whole bunch of information online. That's a blog post, but we have a 165-page PDF that's ridiculously detailed if you want to read that too. So this is what the last year looked like in the overfishing conversation. When we started, I got hired in October 2011. We started monitoring this stuff. We created a baseline. It varies by day of week because people are on the internet differently on different days of the week. It's a big day today, Thursday. Good job, interneters. It's one of the biggest ones. Keep interneting hard. And then we made this gray bumpy line is our spike threshold. So there were like two things that passed the spike threshold in that first hunk of time, about a quarter. And then I hired my team in April. We started testing campaigns. We didn't really figure anything out until Shark Week. We had one little campaign in July, and then last August we started to figure things out. And then once we started figuring things out, you can see that we're lifting up off the baseline a little bit here. There's a few campaigns of ours that cross that spike threshold. And that's when we really figured it out. This is lifted all the way up off the baseline. It hits down into it in Thanksgiving and Christmas when people aren't interneting very hard, which is understandable. But we had a 71% increase in the average daily volume in the overfishing conversation over when we started. A 784% increase in the frequency of spikes, any spike. that cross the threshold, and then a 475% increase in the high spike threshold. And what I want to know is, if you start out with a conversation like this, and you can go to this, what other conversations can we do this in? Overfishing is super important. It's one of several issues I care deeply about. There's lots more ocean issues. Who's on your big team? What big team could you be on? And how could you create an upwelling in a conversation? We are very happy to help, and I will translate that 165-page PDF for you whenever you like over cocktails. Thank you.